Thank you for watching this brief walkthrough of an experiment I've been working on here. So the experiment I was working on is taking the population growth data available on datahub.io and seeing how well Beam can do predictions that are in line with the predictions made by that team. So the population growth data set has estimated actuals from 1950 to 2015, and it also has forward-looking projections from 2015 to some to the year 2100 or 2100. The data set's broken into different regions. I've got a couple different screens for us to walk through, but this first screen here, I can pick which particular region I want to look at. Now regions are collapsed, so you'll see the world, and you'll see some more or less developed. You'll see continents, and you'll see individual countries as part of the region entity. So it's not a grouped structure. There may be a bit of confusion there. You'll have what appear to be duplicates, so you see Africa as well as individual countries. But if we look at this trend, so we're looking at estimated actuals for the world up to about 2015. The lines down represent the estimated actuals are going to zero, and then the start of these other estimates that are from the system and from loaded data. Low fertility, medium, and high fertility, those are data sets that I've loaded in from the data.io based data set. Smooth is something that Beam has provided. So if you look at the divergence here, the high fertility and the low fertility bands, they both bracket the medium fertility, which is this orange one, and the smooth one from board, which is here. Now, looking at the linear extrapolation here, I like the extrapolation from the smooth one from Beam, because you can see, you follow your eye will genuinely continue on and see that it makes sense visually to see that trend continuing. So let's look at a little bit more of the data. So the base data set has estimated actuals down back to 2050, and it also has the projections here that start in 2015. Low fertility, medium fertility, high fertility, momentum, zero migration, instant replacement, constant fertility, constant mortality, and no change. So these are all loaded numbers that have come from the base data set. These are not generated numbers. Looking at the regions for a moment, I do have lat-long coordinates for the different regions, so we're able to see where they would be placed on a map. Now these numbers that you're seeing here are not the sizes, they're the number of data points in those different regions. So if we were to zoom in on a particular one, here we're looking at 2016 data. I can zoom in on different parts of the map here to get a better feel for the data available in that region. So here we're zoomed in on Africa. We can see some different data points here. There's not too much to see on the chart, or on the map at least, but suffice it to say, we do have lat-long coordinates for for many of the regions. Some of the groupings we don't have that, but if you wanted to use those, you can just enter the lat-long that you need. Let's also look at what Beam gives us. So here's that same extrapolation we were looking at before, and now we're looking at the other extrapolations as well. So estimated actuals is loaded data. The target is what we're trying to calculate. Smooth, interval lower, interval higher. These three are calculated from Beam. High fertility, medium fertility, low fertility, those are loaded data sets from the base data set. At the bottom here, we can see the numbers for those different items. And you'll see the board does give us, we get data for for most of the different combinations that we can pull out, and we also get the error information as well. So each of these, the MASE, MAE, and MAPE, those are related to confidence and error intervals. Whereas you can see these ones here, interval lower, interval higher, and smooth, represent predictions that the Beam is able to make based on the historical data it's read in. So what does this look like when we actually look at the predictive screen? So this predictive screen, you can get to it by going to Beam and then Predictive Analytics. And for this data set here, I've just chosen my target as the target cube. It's a fairly simple cube. Let's look at let's jump over to the cube so I can see what makes this up. So each of these cubes really has the same dimensionality. If I look at one, you'll be able to see what I mean. So here we're looking at cubes by year and region. That's really it. It's many years, so it's a broad set of years, but year and region both dense. We have some long coordinates, and I've grouped the beam output cubes in their own area. These are all output from beam. So I reference these in the predictive analytics screen as where I want beam to put the output. So let's go back and look at the predictive screen now. So here I want to have a scenario. I'm calling it forecast based on history. I could run the learning or apply the model only. I've already run the learning and forecast. That's generated the model, but the parameters that the model needed are what to use for input. And here I'm just using estimated actuals. So this is a block like any layout you can use. You can identify different blocks, or probably different cubes that you want to use to affect the output. But for outputs, so here for outputs, you'll notice I'm referencing a cube for each of these different outputs. Some of them are not giving me anything right now. So intermittent and discontinued, and even adding outliers, these three have no output right now when I run the model. That's okay. Smooth is really the only one that gives me output, as well as the errors and interval higher, interval lower, or lower and higher. So now if I go back to my beam estimate screen, so this just shows me the data along the bottom and my grid from my chart along the top showing the trend. What I'm looking for here is I want to see, does it visually make sense to me that this projection is reasonable? That's kind of a reasonability test. And because I can see that the smooth prediction is between my high and low fertility estimates, I can have confidence that it's a reasonable projection based on the data that's been loading in. So just to recap, so this main screen is actually the trend screen. So this shows us a trend and the divergence of the low, medium, for high fertility projections, as well as the smooth projection from beam. I can look at this by different regions. I've got the base data set I can explore if I want to, with historicals going up to 2015 and then future manual projections from 2015 onwards. If there's something we want to look at on a map, we can do that. We've got long coordinates to work with a map. And then the guts of it happen here on this beam estimate screen, where we can look at an individual region and an individual, we can select a set of years that we want to zero in on. And this is showing us from 2010 to 2030. So just a little bit of historical on the light green line, and then more of the projections, which are very similar to each other. So that gives me a high confidence that the projections are all reasonable, because they're falling within what I expect the tolerance to be. So I hope this has been helpful, and if you enjoy it, or if you find this helpful, drop me a note and let me know how it helped.